record. Okay, there we go. And so here we are. Who loves the dark? Why nature loves and needs dark skies. There once was a child who got lost in the woods. As day turned to evening and evening turned to night, the child became more and more frightened. You see, this child had always been afraid of the dark. He was more afraid of the dark than any of his friends or his siblings. He didn't know why he was so afraid. He only knew that when the sun went down, he was always very glad to be inside his brightly lit house. Now the child saw only the dark shadows of the trees, and the only light was from a sliver of the moon and the twinkling stars. The child got so frightened that all he could do was sit down and cry. Suddenly he heard a voice say, "What's all that racket?" He looked down and saw a mole squinting up at him. "I'm lost," he said. "It's dark and I'm afraid." "Well," said the mole, "please take your noisy crying farther down the path. I don't like to come out of my warm, comfortable, dark hole to tell people to be quiet." Then the child heard another voice. "Go on back into your hole, Mr. Mole. I'll take care of this." The child looked up, and in the darkness he saw two glowing eyes looking down at him. Before he could scream, there was a flutter of wings as the huge bird flew down near him. The owl said, "Please excuse Mr. Mole. He hates to come out of his nice dark hole for anything, to be honest." At this, the child burst out crying even harder than before, because as frightened as he was of the dark, having these strange creatures speak to him was even more frightening. "No need for that crying," said the owl. "If you'll just give me your address, I can guide you home." With that, the child did indeed stop crying. He felt better knowing that someone might be able to lead him home, but he wondered how an owl could find his home even with the address. Choking back his tears, he replied that he would be very grateful to be guided home, and gave the owl his address. So this strange pair headed off through the dark forest in what the child hoped was truly the direction of his home. When his fear left him just a little bit, the child looked around, and though the moonlight was dim, he could see some things. At one point, he noticed a kind of flower that he had never seen before. He slowed his pace just a little so he could gaze at it. "That," said the owl as they continued walking, "was an evening primrose. Did you know that there are some flowers that bloom only at night? There are moonflowers and night gladiolus too, flowers you would never see if you never went out at night." After a while, the owl said, as if musing aloud to herself, "And of course, there are also animals who love night and the darkness. Me, for example, I love the dark. In the daytime, the light hurts my eyes, so that's when I like to go into my tree and sleep." To this, the boy replied, "Well, I like the daytime. I can see to kick a ball. I like the hot sun at the beach. When the dark isn't scary, it's just boring." "Boring, you say?" laughed the owl. She clearly had some opinions on this point, but just then there was a fluttering and squeaking around their heads. The child shrieked, "A bat!" He started flailing his arms to knock the creature away, shrieking the whole time. The shape backed away, and hovering just out of reach, said, "Excuse me, that's just my way of saying hello." "Well, hello to you, Mr. Bat," said the owl. "This child is lost, and I'm helping him find his way home. You're not hurt, are you?" "Well," said the bat, "I'll probably have a bruise on my backside, but I think I'll be fine." "But you're a bat," said the child, "a creature of darkness. Weren't you trying to drink my blood?" "No," said the bat, "but I've been eating lots of yummy insects, that would have been biting you if I hadn't been around. Anyway, I couldn't help overhearing what you said about darkness. So you think it's boring? If you want to come just a little bit out of your way, I can show you something really exciting." So the group went off the path and traveled through the deepest forest until they came out onto a dark beach. "Here we are," said the bat. The child gazed out at the beach, and very gently, it was lit very gently by moonlit light, and he thought, "This is certainly beautiful, even in the dark, but I wouldn't call it exciting." Just then, there was a movement in the sand, like a little bubble of sand rising up. Then there was another little bubble, and then another. It looked almost as if the beach were boiling. Then, from one of those little bubbles of sand, out popped a rounded shape. "Looks like we got here just at the right time," said the bat. As they watched, more and more shadowy shapes came up out of the sand, and soon the child realized what he was seeing. Lots of baby turtles, hundreds, climbing out of the sand. This was truly exciting. Once each turtle shape pulled itself up out of the sand, it started crawling as fast as its legs could carry it toward the water. "When baby sea turtles hatch," said the owl in a sort of teacherly voice, "they need to find their way to the water. They follow the moonlight and starlight reflecting off the water. To find the water, they need darkness everywhere else, or they might accidentally follow the wrong light." "Oh," said the child. As they turned to leave and head back towards the child's home, the owl spoke again, as if thinking aloud to herself. "You know who else loves the darkness besides all the nighttime plants and animals? The moon and the stars love the darkness. That's when they can really shine. Oh, they're there in the daytime as well, hidden behind a wall of light. But when that wall goes down with the sun, the stars and the moon reveal their beauty." Soon after the child and the owl left the forest, he saw a familiar street, the street where he lived. He was very happy and relieved, but also a little sad to say goodbye to the owl. He gave his new friend a very gentle hug and a thank you. He went into his home, and being extremely tired, got ready for bed right away. Before he went to bed, he bent down to turn on the light that he always kept glowing through the night to keep the dark at bay. But before his fingers touched the switch, he smiled and pulled his hand away. He got into his bed, pulled up the covers, and let the comforting arms of the darkness soothe him to sleep. The end. So I just had, I guess, one question, and then I'll see if anyone else has any questions. I wanted to ask if anyone here has things that they like to do outside at nighttime.